What's going on, everyone? Welcome to today's forecast video. In today's video, we're going to talk about the short range forecast. Then we're going to talk about the longer range forecast and how there may be a severe weather threat late this upcoming weekend into early next week in the northeastern states. As you can see, generally quiet conditions across much of the country today. We do have thunderstorms that are starting to bubble up in Kansas and Oklahoma. You can see that here on satellite. We also do have this onshore flow from southwest to northeast in the northwest U.S., and that is causing some showers, clouds, generally not a nice day up in this area. Florida, you're continuing to see an onshore flow from the Atlantic Ocean, believe it or not, and that's causing some showers and even some coastal flooding concerns for portions of eastern Florida. It's not a major threat, but it's something you should be concerned of. Taking a look at the national hazards map here, you can see there are coastal flood advisories up for portions of Florida. You can also see there's red flag warnings that are up from Kansas right on up into portions of the Dakotas. So that's something you have to be mindful of today. Then we do have these frost watches and advisories that are up from Virginia through North Carolina and even South Carolina and even extreme northeast Georgia, as temperatures will be dipping into the 30s in this area tonight. As you can see in Nevada, there are flood watches, also flood watches up for portions of Washington and northern Idaho, as well as some high wind warnings that are up in that area as well. Moving on to the Storm Prediction Center, you can see here there is a slight risk of severe weather for portions of Oklahoma and Kansas. Oklahoma City, you're right on the edge of this. Fort Hill, you're right on the edge of it. 2% chance of tornado, 5% chance of wind, 15% chance of hail. And let's take a look at radar there right now. You can see some storms are starting to gather in this area in Oklahoma. A few of them have turned severe. And let's zoom in. Nothing terribly impressive, but there is some hail. Look at this storm around Hitchcock. That's fairly impressive hail that you have going on there right now. Taking a look here at the WPC, marginal risk of some excessive rainfall in places like Oregon, Washington, Idaho. Also a marginal risk on the eastern tip of Florida. One around Jacksonville and another one down around Miami. Let's take a look at the models here, shall we? First, we're going to take a look at the 18Z HRRR model, because I want to show you that frost threat that's up for the Carolinas. And you can see here, temperatures do really cool off there tonight. Temperatures get into the 30s in much of this area. So there is the potential for some spotty frost. And if I zoom this out or continue this out to tomorrow, you can see, look at the plains. The plains really start to warm up. Temperatures get up into the 80s. HRRR's even showing 90s up here in the North Dakota. And if we take this into Wednesday, you can see Wednesday's setting up to be another warm day, even in the east. Places like Pennsylvania, temperatures are going to get into the 80s. All right, remember we were talking about that system down in the Gulf? Well, let's see what the latest is on that. And the models are still showing it. I don't know that it's going to become the name system, first name system of the season, which would be Arlene. But it's definitely going to cause some unsettled weather for the Florida Panhandle, southern Alabama, southern Mississippi, and especially eastern Louisiana. New Orleans, you'll definitely see some unsettled weather from this. You could see some wind gusts of 30 to 35 miles per hour. Your biggest threat with this, I will show you. Heavy rainfall. The GFS is showing it. Multiple models are showing this. And we can zoom this into the southeast view. You can see right along the bayou, right near New Orleans, we're talking anywhere from 2 to 4 inches, maybe localized 5 inches of rain. This is the GFS. I'll show you the RGM model, which RGM model has been really impressive on the rainfall amounts. Check this out. RGM is also showing widespread 3 to 5 inches of rain, even down into southern Mississippi and Alabama. This is putting you into heavier rainfall amounts. So that's really the biggest threat from this system. I'm not terribly impressed with it. If it gets a name with it, so be it. We crossed the first name off the list. In the longer range, we have to watch something that's really catching my eye now. I started noticing it last night. I'm seeing it on the data today, and that is this system right here. Look up here in the Great Lakes. Now we're looking at 21Z Saturday. So for the most part, the east is going to be quiet. That system's going to come up. It is going to cause some showers in the Carolinas, Virginia, maybe up into Pennsylvania. Nothing terribly heavy. Maybe even a thunder shower with it. And one thing I should note that I do want to show you, this is very important. Check out the warm-up that occurs in the east. Here's Thursday. You can see temperatures get into the 80s in Pennsylvania. Friday temperatures get even warmer than that. Maybe even localized mid-80s. So that's something you have to watch. And Saturday you could see another warm-up day. But look at this. You're starting to see a big change that starts showing up in Illinois. From northwest to southeast. That's a system we have to watch. And this is a fairly impressive system. This is a trough that comes in. Ahead of this, you're going to have the warm, even moist air. Then this trough tries to cut off and form a closed low. And it gets really impressive. Look what happens here as we come into Sunday. You can see here, it starts pushing east, but you still have this warm, moist air that's set up. And you'll probably have some shear with this as well, and maybe some instability. We're going to have to watch for the threat of severe weather. Generally from Virginia, West Virginia, on northeast through all the northeastern states on Sunday and maybe even Monday morning. Now, I'm telling you about this. It's 6 to 7 days out. Things could change, but there is a pretty strong and impressive signal right now. Let's take a look at surface. Here's surface on the European model. Look at this. It's showing the potential for a squall line. The system may even slow down and try and transfer to some sort of a secondary system over Maine. But for the most part, this upper level system, it's going to be dealt with for multiple days. The severe weather threat for this right now looks to be Sunday evening, and all modes of severe weather are possible. I could see even the threat of a few tornadoes just because this is an unusually strong system for April, something more that we would see in beginning of March. And there's going to be instability ahead of this. There's going to be shear ahead of this. And it's really catching my eye. Check out the GFS here. I want to show it to you on the GFS as well. And we'll even look at the Canadian. Here's the GFS. GFS is also showing the potential for a squall line with supercell thunderstorms out ahead of this thing. Check out the 500 millibar level. Look at this energy. The vorticity ahead of this. This is a really impressive system. So it's something we're going to have to keep an eye on. It's also on the Canadian as well. The Canadian, I will tell you this. The Canadian's a little bit more southeast, and it is slower with the system. But look at this. You can see that the Canadian is showing thunderstorms out ahead of this system. And look at the temperatures out ahead of this. Even on the Canadian. You can see here, it's showing 80s up to about Maryland. I disagree with that. It's wrong. The 80s are going to get more northeast. I can show you if we go back to the GFS. And you'll see here on the GFS, here's Sunday. This is what I wanted to show you. I had the wrong time frame on the Canadian. Here's the 80-degree weather. This is well out ahead of the system. Also, look at the dew points. Dew points start pushing 60. So that's fairly impressive. So just know this is something we're watching for the Northeast. We'll have more on this as the week goes on, and it's concerning. I think it's safe to say the Storm Prediction Center, maybe not tonight, at the latest by Wednesday, they will already probably slight risk this, and it has the makings of being a big enhanced risk day across much of the Northeast, at least from Vermont, New Hampshire, on Southwest, back into Maryland, through much of Pennsylvania. You could see an enhanced risk day go up for Sunday, and I could see that as early as the day 2 or day 3 outlook as we get closer to this event late this week. All right. How about the long-range weather elsewhere? Well, here's the latest precipitation expected over the next several days. And you can see, through days 1 through 7, the Gulf Coast does get heavy precipitation from that tropical feature that sets up in the Gulf. Finally, not as much precipitation up in the Northwest. Still going to be wet, but not as wet as we were seeing previously. Eastern Florida still wet for you. Here's some precipitation in the Northeast. That's from this upper level system that we'll have to watch, this trough that is going to provide a severe weather threat on Sunday for the Northeast. You also see on the backside of that there will be some precipitation across the plains, across Wisconsin and Minnesota. You're going to get your fair share of precipitation. Take a look at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. You're seeing a wide mixture of things here. Above average temperatures in the east, that's guaranteed. Below average temperatures in the central states, the Four Corners above average, and below average on the west coast. And if you want more below average, Alaska, you're going to be below average as well. Then as we head towards the 8 to 14 day outlook, a little less jumbled here. A wide swath of below average temperatures from the west coast through the plains, through to the Great Lakes, the southern plains and the Four Corners region, above average, same with Florida, and above average in Maine. Taking a look at the temperature or precipitation outlook for 6 to 10 days, above average in the east, above average in the northwest, with a large swath of below average in between. Then on the 8 to 14 day outlook, we do go back to below average in the northeast after that trough goes through. It does not look as wet as the period does on Sunday into Monday. And really, that's the only main threat of precipitation in the northeast. Pacific Northwest, you'll still have some systems coming on the northwest coast. So above average there, slightly above average. I do agree with that. And the slightly above average for southern Texas and southern Florida, it's agreeable. Near normal everywhere else in between. Alrighty, folks, that does it for today's long-range outlook. Stay weather aware if you're in the Northeast this weekend. We'll have more updates on that as the week goes on. And also, stay weather aware if you're down in Louisiana. You could have a very unsettled stretch coming up anytime from about Wednesday through Thursday as that system gets going. Alrighty, see you all again next time. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this, hit the subscribe button down below. Thanks for watching.